It was 3:17 a.m., the kind of hour when hospitals go quiet, except for the steady hum of machines and the soft squeak of rubber soles on polished floors. I remember standing alone in the break room, lights flickering overhead, one paper cup of coffee gone cold. My white coat, still hanging on the hook behind the door, looked like it belonged to someone else. That night, my name was already off the call board. My login badge had stopped working. My locker, empty, like I'd never been there at all. That's the thing no one tells you. You don't lose everything all at once. It's slow, a series of quiet deletions. First your access, then your reputation, and finally, your voice. I used to walk these halls believing I was part of something sacred, that medicine was about helping people, healing, doing the right thing, even when it was hard. But hospitals? They don't run on truth. They run on hierarchy, reputation, power. And when you see something they don't want you to see, they don't argue. They erase. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't wrong. But I became the problem because I wouldn't stay silent. Now, I'm here, in a town where no one knows my name. And for the first time, I'm ready to tell you what really happened. There's something sacred about your first white coat. It doesn't fit right. It's too stiff, too clean. But you wear it like armor, like proof that you've made it somewhere no one ever expected you to reach. Back then, I believed medicine was pure, that if you worked hard, memorized every muscle and molecule, gave up sleep and summers and sanity, you'd earn your place. You'd matter. I didn't grow up in lecture halls or behind gated driveways. My mother cleaned houses. Every time she'd come home, smelling like bleach and lemon oil, she'd press 20 crumpled dollars into my hand and whisper, "You were meant for more than this." So I studied under flickering lights, ate dollar ramen, and when that acceptance letter came, I cried in a bathroom stall so no one would see. Med school was brutal. No one tells you it's less about healing and more about surviving. Round after round, test after test, room after room of men who don't look like you, speak over you, and wait for you to mess up. But I held on. I adapted. I excelled. Not because the system welcomed me, but because I refused to let it break me. And when I stepped into my first hospital as a resident, I didn't feel fear. I felt ready. What I didn't know was that being good wouldn't be enough. Not in a place where truth has a price. It looked like something out of a movie. Marble floors, polished nameplates, every hallway buzzing with purpose. This was the hospital where the best came to prove they belonged. Where interns barely slept, residents ran on caffeine and panic, and surgeons were treated like gods in scrubs. And somehow, I was there. Every morning started before the sun came up, charting labs, checking vitals, running on nerves. Every night ended in silence, walking home past glowing windows of people who hadn't traded their lives for a pager. It was impressive, yes, but underneath the prestige was pressure. There was no room for doubt, no space for mistakes, and definitely no tolerance for outsiders asking the wrong questions. I kept my head down, smiled when I was overlooked, nodded when I was interrupted mid-sentence by someone with more letters after their name. You learn quickly. In a place like this, silence keeps you safe. Challenge the system, and it pushes back. Still, I believed I could rise without losing myself, that I could play the game without becoming part of the machine. But ivory towers aren't built to lift people up. They're built to keep the wrong ones out. And when the cracks started to show, They made sure I'd be the first to fall through them. It was supposed to be routine. Middle-aged man, liver transplant, clean match, private room, vitals stable, wealthy enough to have an entire team orbiting around him. VIP patient, board-level donor, whispers about funding the new surgical wing. Everyone called him Mr. C. No last name needed. Surgery went fine. The team celebrated like it was a win, but less than 36 hours later, he was gone. Code Blue hit just before sunrise. ICU turned into chaos. Alarms blaring, people yelling drug names and dosages like prayers. But nothing worked. We lost him. They said it was post-op complications. He was already compromised, they told the family. These things happen. And that was supposed to be the end of it. But something felt off. Not because of the death. We see death. You learn to live next to it. It was what came after that didn't sit right. The attending brushed it off too quickly. Nurses exchanged looks, then went quiet. Orders were missing. Logs didn't match up. A gut feeling told me to dig deeper. So I did. Checked the medication orders, then the timestamps, then the chart. And there it was. One small line in the electronic record that didn't belong. A dosage that had been changed after it was given. A switch that no one signed off on. It didn't make sense unless someone was trying to cover their tracks. And the moment I saw it, my stomach dropped. Because in that split second, I realized something terrifying. Someone didn't just make a mistake. They made a decision. There's a rule in medicine. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. But no one tells you what to do when something is documented. That shouldn't have happened at all. I stared at the chart for hours, flipping between notes, drug orders, timestamps. The dosage of epinephrine, crucial in that final hour, had been entered twice. 2 different values, one clearly dangerous, one cleaned up. And the thing is, systems don't lie, people do. I dug deeper, pulled archived versions of the chart, compared versions from the time of death to the ones printed later. What I found? An audit trail. Someone had gone back into the system after the fact and altered the record. Quietly. No flag, no initials. Just like that, a lethal mistake became invisible, erased with a few keystrokes. I tried to talk myself out of it, told myself maybe it was just a correction, a glitch, a late entry. But deep down, I knew better. Hospitals don't like scandals, and when powerful people are involved, people who write checks, not charts, truth becomes negotiable, disposable. I should have let it go, pretended I never saw it. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. So I wrote up a report, a quiet, formal, by-the-book incident note. No accusations, just questions. I submitted it through the internal system and logged off. And in that moment, I felt proud, like I'd done the right thing. But I didn't know the rules had already changed. That by speaking up, I wasn't reporting a problem. I was becoming one. It started with a meeting request, no explanation, just a 10:15 a.m. invite to HR. The kind of thing that makes your heart race, even when you know you've done nothing wrong. I walked in expecting questions, maybe clarification, maybe even thanks. What I got instead was silence. 2 people in suits, 1 lawyer, 1 clipboard, no coffee, no warmth, no smile. They didn't ask why I filed the report. They asked why I accessed the patient's chart after the time of death. They called it unauthorized review, said I'd violated HIPAA, that I'd compromised trust, that I was being investigated for breaching protocol. My stomach dropped. They weren't looking for the truth. They were looking for someone to blame, and they had already decided who. When I tried to explain, they cut me off, said anything further would need to go through legal. Legal? I wasn't some criminal. I was a doctor trying to protect a patient, even if it was too late to save him. But none of that mattered, because they weren't defending medicine. They were defending the brand. By the end of the week, my badge didn't work. My login was suspended. I was taken off the schedule, pending further review. And just like that, I wasn't a doctor anymore. Not officially, not legally, not even to the people I used to call colleagues. No cape, no thanks, no rescue, just silence. And the sound of every door closing, one by one. There's a silence in hospitals that doesn't come from stillness. It's the sound of people avoiding you. No one says anything outright. They don't need to. You walk into a room and conversations stop. Your name disappears from the group chats. Suddenly, no one needs a second pair of hands anymore. You'd think, after everything, someone would have asked if I was okay. But in places like that, silence is a kind of language. And I'd been marked. The locker I used to open every morning. It had been emptied without warning. The name tag peeled off. My stuff, tossed into a cardboard box and handed to me like evidence. And when I passed my old team in the hallway, they looked past me, not at me, because once they label you a risk, you stop existing. The worst part, it's not the anger. It's not the betrayal. It's the way they move on like you were never really one of them to begin with. Like you'd only ever been tolerated. Like your presence had been conditional, dependent on your silence, your obedience, your ability to fit in without standing out. And when you break that illusion, even for the right reasons, they don't argue, they just erase you. By the end of that week, I wasn't just alone. I was invisible, and for the first time in years, I realized they never saw me in the first place. You don't get a warning when your life unravels. It just starts to happen, quietly, mercilessly. First, a headline popped up on some local health news site. Resident under investigation after patient death. No name at first, just enough detail to raise eyebrows. Then came the anonymous leaks, my initials, the department, the hospital, and suddenly, I was the story. The article made it sound like I'd miscalculated a dosage, like I'd made a reckless call in the middle of the night and someone paid the price for my inexperience. There was no mention of the altered records, no mention of the real mistake, because it wasn't mine. I watched in silence as the version of me they created began to spread. She was careless, emotional, unstable under pressure. I even saw a comment that said, probably got in through diversity points. Another one just said, another quota higher killing patients. The email came a day later. Your license is temporarily suspended pending investigation. And with that, the door slammed shut. I reached out to every program director I knew, every hospital I'd ever rotated through. Nothing. Just cold acknowledgments, or worse, no reply at all. You spend years killing yourself for this career, and they can take it away in a week. No trial, no defense, just whispers and silence. And then you're done. I wasn't just losing a job. I was losing an identity, a future I bled for. And the world didn't even blink. We were 3 months behind on rent. I hadn't told her yet, didn't have the heart, but she knew something was wrong. Mothers always do. She came home one night, hair tied back, arms tired from scrubbing office floors, and saw the envelope in my hands. No return address, just big red letters that said, "Immediate termination of lease." She didn't ask questions. She just sat down beside me. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just happening to me. They were pulling her down with me. The woman who gave everything so I could rise was now being evicted because her daughter refused to stay quiet. And as if that wasn't enough. 2 days later, she lost her job. Apparently, one of the clinic staff recognized her, said her daughter had been on the news, said it wasn't a good look for the practice. They let her go with a fake smile and a severance check that couldn't even cover groceries. In just 1 week, 7 days, everything I'd spent my life building was gone. The white coat, the respect, the future, the home, and now her stability too. I remember standing in our kitchen, holding her old lunchbox, staring at the light flickering above the sink. And I thought, how did we get here? How did telling the truth turn into a death sentence? You grow up believing that if you do things right, play by the rules, keep your head down, you'll be okay. That hard work is enough. But they don't tell you what to do when the system decides you're disposable. They don't tell you how to survive that. Texas wasn't part of the plan. Neither was living under a name that wasn't mine. But when you've lost everything, plans stop mattering. You just look for the next place where no one asks questions. It was a town so small, they didn't bother with crosswalks. Gas was cheap. Coffee was burnt. And nobody looked twice at a girl bussing tables with eyes that didn't match the smile. That was me now, the girl in the diner, 6 days a week, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., apron tied too tight, hair tucked under a cap, taking orders from truck drivers and old men who left sticky quarters as tips. No one knew I used to hold lives in my hands, that I once made rounds, presented cases, called codes. Now, I wiped ketchup off cracked vinyl booths and said, "Yes, sir," like it was second nature. There was comfort in the monotony, I won't lie. No politics, no reputations to protect, no press releases, just the rhythm of pouring coffee and pretending nothing ever existed before this place. But the silence, it was loud. And some nights, when the rush was over and I was scrubbing the same spot for the 5th time, I'd feel it again. That voice in my chest, the one that used to believe in justice, in purpose. I thought I'd buried her, but she was still there, waiting. Because the thing about the truth, even if you try to run from it, it always finds its way back. They say time heals everything, but time doesn't heal what silence keeps alive. The diner had its own kind of rhythm, eggs sizzling, orders shouted, a bell that rang every time someone opened the door too fast. And in between all that noise was a different kind of quiet, the kind that sits in your chest, heavy, still, like grief that doesn't know where to go. I'd convinced myself I could live like that blending in was safer than standing out, that maybe starting over didn't need to come with revenge or redemption, just enough cash to pay rent and forget. But silence isn't peace. It's a cage. And every night, when I walked back to the tiny room I rented behind the gas station, I'd stare at that old tablet I brought with me, half broken, screen cracked down the middle, and I'd feel it again. The weight of the truth, the knowledge I still carried, the evidence I had saved, before everything burned. No one had ever asked me to keep it. No one even knew I had it. But there it was, on a flash drive taped behind the battery. The original patient logs, audit trails, EHR entries, a digital ghost of everything they thought they buried. And somewhere between wiping tables and folding tips into my pocket, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Anger. Not the kind that screams, the kind that builds, quietly, sharpening itself in the dark. Because maybe they took everything from me, but they didn't take the truth. And I was done pretending I didn't still have it. It started with a voice memo. One night, after another double shift, I sat alone at that sticky diner counter, earbuds in, half a sandwich left untouched, and hit record. Not for anyone else, just for me. Just to remember that I still had one. I spoke slowly at first, not as a doctor, not as someone anyone would recognize, just as a human being who had seen something she couldn't unsee. I didn't name names, didn't rant. I told a story, one I knew too well, about a man who died, and a hospital that lied, and what it cost to speak up. And the strange thing is, it felt good. Not like a scream, but like a release. So I did it again the next night, and the next. Then I started uploading them, anonymously. No pictures, no credentials, just a voice. The podcast was called White Coat Lies. It wasn't polished, it wasn't viral, but something about it resonated. People listened. And then people responded. Emails came in from other med students, nurses, techs, even a few doctors. All of them saying the same thing. I saw something too. I stayed quiet too. I thought I was alone. That's when I realized maybe I'd lost the title. Maybe I didn't have the letters after my name anymore. But I still had something stronger than credentials. I had the truth, and a voice that refused to stay buried. It was just a regular Tuesday. Slow day. A few truckers. A crying baby. The kind of shift where nothing feels like it matters. Until I checked my inbox. There it was. An email with no subject line. No body. Just a file attachment. At first, I thought it was spam. But the moment I opened it, my hands started shaking. It was real. The original audit trail. The one that had disappeared from the hospital system after Mr. C died. There were timestamps, access logs, the dosage entry. Unedited, untouched. The exact line that had been erased, and whoever sent it, they had access. Deep access. There was a single line in the metadata. For what they took from you. I didn't know who it was. Didn't care. Because now I had what I needed. Not just a story, not just my voice, proof. I uploaded the file into a secure server, built a new episode. I didn't dramatize it, didn't scream, just read the facts, laid it all out, calm, measured, undeniable. By morning, the podcast had tripled in downloads, then 10 times. Reddit threads lit up. A healthcare journalist messaged me, asking for an interview. Someone even posted a photo of the same attending doctor shaking hands with the deceased donor's family the week before the surgery. People were connecting the dots. The hospital had built its power on silence, on whispered threats and closed-door cover-ups. But now, those whispers were turning into thunder. Going viral sounds like a victory. But what no one tells you is, it makes you visible. Too visible. One morning, I stepped out of the diner and found a car parked across the street. Same one that had been there the night before, and the night before that. No plates on the front. No one inside. Just there. My heart didn't race. It dropped. Because I knew that silence again. The kind that comes right before something hits. That same day, I got a message through the podcast page. No name, no greeting. Just 6 words. You're getting too close. Stop now. And just like that, it wasn't just my voice out there anymore. It was my location, my face, my life, the same hospital that once denied I ever mattered. Suddenly seemed to care a little too much that I was talking. I stopped taking the same route home, bought a burner phone, slept with a chair jammed under the doorknob, and I started asking myself, what if they're right? What if I've poked something I can't control? But then I remembered that flash drive, that moment in the hospital, when I realized they'd rather erase me than admit mistake. And I remembered the patient, the man they used, then discarded. If I backed down now, then all of this, the fear, the fall, the fight, it would have been for nothing. So I took a breath, logged back in, and hit publish. The upload took less than 5 seconds. A zip file, 147 megabytes, labeled simply, Evidence, do not delete. I didn't send it to the press. I didn't trust them. I sent it straight to the people. A secure link, tied to the podcast, posted on every platform I had, with a message that read, "This isn't just my story anymore. It's ours." Inside that folder was everything: audit trails, time logs, redacted internal emails, a digital paper trail that couldn't be rewritten or deleted, and most importantly, the truth about what really happened to Mr. C. Within hours, it exploded. News sites picked it up. Forums dissected every detail. Medical boards got tagged. Law firms reached out. Even a former hospital administrator released a statement trying to minimize the damage. Too little, too late. By midnight, the hospital locked down their social pages. By morning, they were trending. For all the wrong reasons, lawsuits followed, investigations reopened, and for the first time, they were the ones being asked the questions. But here's the thing no one really prepares you for, even when the truth wins. It doesn't always come with closure. I didn't get reinstated, no official apology, no phone call saying, "You were right." And honestly, I wasn't expecting one, because this was never about getting my job back. It was about making sure no one else gets erased the way I did. They tried to bury a mistake. What they didn't realize was that some sins don't stay buried. Some crawl back up through the dirt, clawing their way into the light, and screaming loud enough to burn down everything built on silence. The message came 3 days after the leak. Encrypted. No signature. Just a single sentence. I sent the file. You deserved to be heard. I froze. Read it again. And again. And then another line came through. You probably don't remember me, but I remember everything. That's when it hit me. There was only one person who ever sat through my 3 a.m. breakdown in the call room. Only one who saw me reading those logs in the hallway. Too nervous to say anything, but watching. A junior resident. Quiet. Barely spoke. Always scribbling notes and slipping out of sight. Back then, I thought he was just shy. Maybe indifferent. Turns out, he was scared too. And while I was being erased, he was still inside, watching, recording, saving every file they tried to scrub. He told me he stayed quiet at first, said it haunted him, said he kept the evidence not out of loyalty, but guilt. And now, after all this time, he had chosen to speak in the only way he knew how. It's strange, isn't it? How the people you expect to protect you stay silent, while the ones you never noticed end up saving everything. I always thought I was alone in that fight, but I wasn't. Not really, because somewhere out there, someone else had been carrying the same weight, waiting for the same moment, to finally do what was right. There's no moment where someone pins a medal on your chest. No dramatic courtroom scene. No tearful apology from the people who broke you. Justice, real justice, isn't clean. It's messy. It's flawed. And it doesn't come with closure. But it comes. The hospital went quiet. PR teams scrambled. Lawsuits stacked like patient charts left on a bad night shift. A few senior staff were reassigned. The board issued a statement full of legal padding and zero accountability. But me, I was still blacklisted, still locked out of every door I once walked through like I belonged there. No reinstatement, no reinstated license. And honestly, I stopped waiting for one. One morning, I went back. Not inside, just outside. Stood across the street from the building where it all began. Same entrance, same marble, same lie carved above the lobby doors. In service of life. Funny thing is, I used to believe that. Now I know better. Justice, for me, wasn't getting back what they took. It was making sure they could never do it again. At least not quietly. And I walked away knowing I'd done something they couldn't undo. They erased a doctor, but they couldn't erase the truth. Couldn't silence the voice they never thought would rise again. Not all scars fade. Some stay. To remind you that you survived the thing that was meant to destroy you. And if that's not justice, I don't know what is. If you've ever been told to stay quiet, for the sake of peace, for the good of the team, for your own career. If you've ever swallowed the truth because speaking, it felt like a risk you couldn't afford. I see you. This story wasn't just about medicine. It wasn't just about a hospital, or a scandal, or a title lost. It was about what happens when the system chooses comfort over conscience, when silence becomes currency, and survival means playing along. But here's what I learned. Even in the darkest corners of power, truth echoes. So if this story found something in you, a moment, a memory, a wound that never quite healed, don't let it stop with silence. Leave a comment. Share your story. Tag someone who needs to hear this. Because the more we speak, the harder it becomes to bury us. And if you're new here, subscribe, not just for content, but because this space, this voice, this truth, it's not going away. Some stories are meant to shake the ground. Thanks for listening. You're not alone anymore.